Board meeting of December 18th. The adoption of the regular board meeting minutes from November the 27th.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Adoption of tonight's agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Rick. Any discussion? All those in favor? And we're good to go. The board did have an in-camera meeting from about 6:20 till 7 p.m. There's no presentation this evening, and we move to old business. Superintendent Halter.
In the journey that is the inquiry, I just would like to report out to the board and to the gallery that the status of the inquiry right now in terms of its publication lays in the hands of the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. Two members of our community have appealed to the Privacy Commissioner for a review of our decision, my decision as the superintendent, about what we were going to publish, and it now lies there and it sits there until the Privacy Commissioner rules. It would be my hope that as we have all, I believe, fulfilled all of our responsibilities to send the information to the Privacy Commissioner, that that would get attended to in the new year, hopefully early on in the new year. So at this point in time, it is out of the hands of the district through me and sits there, and we'll wait for that to be lifted off that table.
Thank you. We can move straight into management reports.
To Chairperson, I'd just like to, I know that we've got a busy agenda, but I just wanted to point you to page 4, which is the good news items that are there for you to have a look at. Of course, there's a million things going on in the month of December, all kinds of exciting celebration of skills, of fine arts, of dance and music. Senior team has been certainly entranced by the various winter concerts and winter activities that we've been able to participate in or view. Listed there are some of the other accomplishments of our district. There's the Saturday Robotics Challenge. That's been an amazing adventure for all of those young men and women involved in robotics. Particularly as we have our Robotics Academy now, it has really added another layer to that level of expertise that our very young students are showing, which is quite exciting. There's been a number of, probably too many to list, charity organizations in the Valley who have been recipients of some amazing fundraising going on at all of our schools, sometimes 3 and 4 different initiatives in our high schools, 2 or 3 of them in elementary, and just a few of them are there. The one thing that I did want to just bring to your attention, because I mentioned it last meeting, was that at Cole Puntledge Park they were doing the Everyone Deserves a Smile, part of the We Can project. If you recall, they were actually creating bags for the homeless. I talked about that at the last board meeting. They actually, last Friday, I walked into the gymnasium at Cole Puntledge Park, and I have to tell you, I started to cry. I was like I'm useless. I went in, and there was over 500 bags that were painted and decorated by students K to 7 at Cole Puntledge Park. Each contained a warm hat, a scarf, mittens, baked cookies all wrapped, other things made by students, and a card for each person who received it that said something really positive from a young child. They were as sophisticated and as some of them were done on computers because they were done by grade 7 students, and there was kindergarten printing and pictures that were just so moving. And so that all culminated. That was a whole school, whole community activity. They're going to be delivering those bags to the homeless, to the folks in Courtenay, in Nanaimo, and as far south as Victoria. They made so many bags. So it was just the most amazing experience for their students. The staff reported that they had never seen such ownership. It had been one of those uplifting experiences, particularly for some of our more needier students, where they were able to contribute in a way that they hadn't ever been able to contribute before. So hats off to a student teacher who was the main organizer of that, Chantel. She's just a dynamic young woman, and the staff and parents and local community around the Cole Puntledge Park. So that ends my report.
Yeah,
It's exciting, very exciting.
Is there, and forgive me if I haven't seen it, but is there a chance of photo to be
There-
put onto our website?
Yes, there were photos, and that all, I thought they had come to us actually yesterday, they haven't, because I was there when they were taking pictures.
So it's something that we can
Yeah.
perhaps see on.
Yeah.
I believe that A-Channel News, Channel 12 News covered the school, did a really good, and I think Shaw for us, they've been repeating it, but they really did report on that also in previous students.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh, sorry, I skipped,
Mr. DeVeo.
skipped my namesake. Mr. DeMayo. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you. You'll see attached page 5 and 6 package are some briefing note regarding the development of the 2013-14 school calendar, and specifically around Bill 36. So in the briefing note, I've listed some of the definitions that they're using when determining the school calendar. As folks are aware, with Bill 36, the flexibility to have the calendar, the standard calendars we're used to seeing, is gone, and it's up to each individual boards now to develop a calendar. I'll point out a few things here, and if you take a look on page 6, the minimum hours of instruction. Previous calendars used to deal with days of instruction or days in session, and figures such as 185, 187 days in session. For next year and moving forward, it deals with hours of instruction. So you will notice, for our kindergarten students, a minimum of 853 hours of instruction. If we use our current schedule, our current 4.5 hour, 4 hour, 45 minute per day, that would be 180 minutes. So you can see, 180 days minimum in the calendar year. So you can see for the kindergarten grade 1 to 7 and 8 to 12 what is the minimum hours of instruction. Also, the board is required to submit a calendar by March 30th to the ministry. March 31st, and the board must make public the calendar they intend to submit by the 28th of February. And it's a month turnover for feedback with regards to the calendar. Now, the calendar committee has been working. We've met twice, most recently this past week. And it's members of DPAC, CUPE, the CDTA, and the trustees is on that committee as well. We've gone through it. We've went through the regulations in quite a bit of detail. We just received on Friday afternoon late the missing piece of information, which was around the exam schedule for next year, to have a look at that and how that would fit into the calendar. And so we will be reconvening in January with that committee to look at developing a proposed calendar that we will bring to the trustees at that point. And other than that, are there any questions?
Trustees, any comments?
I just wonder, in setting this calendar, are you taking some consideration of the X-block changes at different schools and minimum hours
Yes.
of instruction? So there may be variations at each school could look a little different within that calendar depending on what they're doing?
It could, yes. And I think this is an opportunity to look at all of the options that we can have.
Yeah. But that would be a reassurance to us that even with the X-block procedures going in, these minimum hours would still be...
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, that's
Correct.
great. I do note here that it says that start and end times of the school day does not need to be included in the calendar, so
That's
could
correct.
we be looking at changes to secondary programming through the calendar process that would address those concerns about the secondary students' brain development in their learning? Do we get more flexibility then as a result?
Those are things that I think schools are always looking at, and I know having discussions with our 3 high schools, they're always examining
Yeah.
those concepts.
So
and-
that would come
Of
forward
course.
to this committee, or it might be part of your consideration?
Yeah.
Cool.
Mr. Caton?
So my understanding is that the public on February the 28th,
Yes.
and then March 31st, the feedback, is that where it goes out for this is what's happening, and if people decide they don't like it, is that where they would write submissions or give information to the calendar committee of the board? How does that process work? I think it's different from last year, is it not?
It is. It hasn't been clearly defined from the ministry's point in terms of the requirements. That calendar, the proposed calendar, is put up and made public, and comments would be collected, and then the calendar committee would look at that, have that discussion, and sit down and present the trustees the findings or anything at that point.
Just so in that case, because it's new, that was something that would be on definitely, I would say a definition, or so parents would know what they're responding and feedback and that, because I think it's a brand new system and they want to know how to feedback, I think.
I'm going to ask.
It's because I have a bit of history. It's not a brand new system. The only thing is that the timeline has just been completely condensed. Okay. So if you recall, in the last 3 or 4 years, the calendar committee has either put surveys out. They've gathered feedback, but we had a much longer window to do this. This whole change to the calendar, we've been hearing about it for a long time, and it certainly provides boards with a lot more flexibility than used to exist, and it provides boards to be able to consider things like different ways of programming. No one expected us to get it on November 21st and be told that the deadline for the whole process to the ministry was March 31st, because historically it's been May 31st. So we will put something together that meets the criteria of Bill 36. Probably in our first year won't look particularly, we won't have a lot of time to do a whole lot of programming changes around what the Bill 36 could provide, but we'll put something out there, we'll post it on the website like we always have, we'll get feedback from folks. There are representatives from all of the stakeholder groups, they'll be going back and saying, what do you think about this? The only difference is that we have to do that to get it in front of you done by March 31st. So there'll be a mad shuffle in January and February while we gather feedback. The calendar committee will be, and so it'll be a fairly standard-looking calendar without a whole lot of changes in it other than the ones that are part of the Bill 36 piece initially. And then over time, as we move and become more sophisticated in our need for the calendar, you'll have much longer windows for consultation. Thank goodness we started in November meeting as a calendar committee. Otherwise, some districts haven't even met with their calendar committees. They weren't intending to do that till February because the window was May. So there'll be a process. It'll just be in a much more condensed time, but there will be feedback.
And the other big change is that calendar begins July 1st, not September. It's July 1st to June 30th. So that's the other big change.
So, for clarification, a couple of board meetings ago, the board asked senior management to do a little bit of work and provide us with some feedback on what year-round calendar schooling could look like. This is not that.
No.
This is not. So just for clarification for the public and our partners, this is not that. This is the existing calendar committee as it has existed in previous years, with some adjustments based on the recalibrating in terms of hours as opposed to days, deadlines, etc. But it is not any sort of a fast track, accelerated process to look at doing a big makeover of our district. That is something that this board or a board may choose to do down the road.
Okay.
So just not to confuse the two. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Secretary Church.
Thank you, sir. On page 7 through page 21 is a copy of the Statement of Financial Information Report, or the SOFI. On page 8 is a table of contents that gives you an idea of what's contained in this report. This statement attaches to or reconciles to our audited financial statement. Significance on what we report on it is any employee that has salary above $75,000, any supplier whose total payments are in excess of $25,000, any severance lump sum payments that are made, and then we have a section where we report on the trustees as well. This requires the signature of the chair and superintendent and myself to be submitted by December 31st, and it is as of June 30th, 2012. I don't plan on going through all of it in detail for you, but a caution or an observation that you should be aware of when you're looking at this statement is the expenses that you see beside individuals' names are the gross expenses, the expenses before we have recoveries from external agencies. So if we have senior management or trustees traveling on behalf of other associations that are reimbursing us for those costs, what we're reporting is the expense part, not the recovery piece, and that's how the SOFI is required to be reported. I think that's self-explanatory. Page 21, if you're into the number reconciliation piece, this is the page that reconciles the information that's contained in this report to our audited financial statements, and on the bottom right-hand side shows a difference of 0, which means it is reconciled. That would be my report, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any other questions.
Any questions? Or comments? So just, again, on the expense piece, the requirement is the SOFI requirement, that it's listed that way. It is not something that we have under SOFI, we don't need to, or there isn't a third column that we put in that says
This is
recoverable.
That's correct. This is a defined format and structure and content from the ministry.
And consistent with other agencies, obviously, that report this.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from trustees? Okay. Seeing none, we move on to Human Resources report.
Okay, on page 22, we have a list of upcoming retirements, which I will name. So Monica Mooney, library clerk at Brooklyn Elementary, will retire March 31st after 17 years of service for the district. Valerie Madison, a teacher at QDAN, will retire December 31st after 23 years of service for the district. Patricia Langdon, EA at Cumberland Elementary, will retire effective December 31st after 24 years of service. And Fiona Taylor's distance learning resource clerk, North Island Distance Education School, will retire March 31st after 25 years of service for the district. And all these folks will be honored at the next retirement function from the board in June 2013. Thank you. That's
Thank you. Any comments? Anybody, somebody to move receipt of the management reports? Thank you, Trustee Cayton. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Donna. All those in favor? And that's carried. And we move to Board Committee reports. Finance Committee, Trustee Grinham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 23 is the Finance Committee meeting minutes of December the 10th. We received an overview of the revenue projections and financial updates on the Student-Based Budget Committee update. We also received an impact on the operating reserve. This is a change because of the change in the Public Sector Accounting Board standards, but those costs will be just a line item on the budget, so it's just moving it from one column to another column. Page 25 is a letter received from the Minister of Education and addresses cooperative gains compensation mandate. And we bring it forward to the board. And I'm not sure what you want to do with it, Mr. Chair.
So this was a letter that came out, as it states, on December the 3rd to all board chairs in the province, and thought it would be prudent to put this into the Finance Committee, or certainly conversation with the Secretary-Treasurer, rather than just in the correspondence. So are you able to?
I can speak to it if you wish. From a factual point of view, the minister is looking for school districts to try to find the equivalent of 1.5% savings in non-payroll costs in the current school year, recognizing that we're halfway through our fiscal year. The savings for year one attached to the support staff is approximately $107,000. And what is not stated in this letter that was clarified at a subsequent conference call is they're also looking for an additional 1.5% in the 13-14 school year. So the compounding effect that's approximately $216,000. A question was asked also around the alignment of this with the teacher settlement. So the teachers are in the last year of their current collective agreement and would begin the cooperative gains mandate for July 1, 2013. And the dollars, if you were to apply that on the teachers, in year one is about $494,000. Year two, it's $1,001,000. So overall, the effect on our budget, if this cooperative gains mandate was applied, based on the minister's letter and our subsequent follow-up, is $106,000 in this year, about $709,000 in 13-14, and about $1 million in the 14-15. What's important to point out is the mandate does not allow a reduction in services, people, personnel. We're not allowed to transfer costs to the public. We're not allowed to have any form of reduction. Our total non-payroll cost budget is about $11 million. And so if you start applying those percentages into the $11 million, it's quite a difficult exercise. The previous budgets, for sure, looking at efficiencies has been a large strategy. We had a difficult budget last year and have in previous years, and a lot of work has been done to look for those efficiencies that are being referred to, and there's not a lot of, if any, low-hanging fruit or simple efficiencies that could be achieved to support the letter as the minister has written.
So before opening up for comment and discussion, provide a little bit of background as well. I think as trustees can appreciate, this particular letter got the attention of all districts in a substantial way in the province. It also has the attention of BCSTA leadership, who are our representatives in large part in the conversations with government. Not to prejudice any conversations, I think it was just, I'm just reporting the feedback from the other districts, some of which you have seen, with copies of letters that have come out to all, is that they're unanimous in their disapproval, if I can put it that way, of this particular request. Some boards have had an opportunity to discuss it already formally. Some will not have an opportunity prior to the break, and we'll get to it in early January. Earlier today, I received an email that I forwarded on to trustees and to senior management from the president of the BCSTA, who will be surveying all of the boards to gain some consensus or at least some idea of the views out there in their ongoing conversations with government. And there wasn't time to include that, obviously, in the board package, but I think there's a copy of the survey circulating around. So just to provide a bit of context, this is our opportunity to have a conversation and provide any direction that you may have to me around what we should do and what our response may be. Trustee Katie.
I would like this board to write a letter to the Minister of Education stating that this is not doable. My years on the board, every year we have cut programs, we have worked hard to balance our budget, we have provided services to students, and we have to really have a hard look as to what services and what programs we cut every year. To cut another $1 million out of our budget, I don't see us doing that. I have no clue where we're going to cut it, who we're going to cut it, where that's going to come out, without directing impact of students in the classroom. This is not doable, and I really, really am not happy with the Ministry of Education downloading, and that's what I call it, downloading wages and increases for employees on boards when it's their responsibility, their negotiations to provide adequate education dollars.
Second.
So was that formally a motion?
That's a formal motion, a letter to the Ministry of Education.
Could you repeat that?
I move that we write a letter to the Ministry of Education expressing our concerns and displeasure with this cooperative gains process.
Trustee McDonald, second.
Yes, I'm seconding that. Yes.
Discussion on the motion? Trustee Coleman?
I agree with the sentiments, but my strategy would be somewhat different, having reviewed the other letters and in particular the letter from the president of the BCSTA. It seems to me that this is our best response is a collective one through the BCSTA and expressing, and I think Michael McAvoy already he said what I thought anyway, and I'm sure many other trustees agree with him, but I do think it's best for us to use the organization of which we are serious members and committed members to make it clear to the ministry that this is not something that they should be dumping on school boards. Rather, they should be consulting with our association in advance. And if we each respond individually, I think we send the message that they can deal with us individually. And I don't really think that's the appropriate way to do it. Although I agree with everything that Trustee Caton said.
So can I just for clarification, should the board approve sending a letter to the ministry, that doesn't preclude what you're suggesting either, that we
I guess not.
harness our views under the BCSDA to lead the conversations. Because I think you're absolutely right. The minister or his representatives is not going to engage in conversations with representatives from all school districts, and BCSDA is our representative to deal with them. Sheila and then James.
Yeah, I think that we definitely have a voice through the BCSDA, and they're taking initiative on this quite quickly, and that is effective. But I also think, and all of the other letters that have been written that we've been receiving have basically sent the message. But I think it's important for our district to be taking a position on this and on our own responding and not being silent in that way. So I just want to add, though, that I want to be clear that I support the increases for our support staff and for our teachers, and I think that there is a need for the teaching education sector wages to be keeping up, and that I think the government has other ways to find the funding necessary to support education, primarily our teachers and other support staff, and that for me personally, discussion of a surcharge on incomes over $250,000, $500,000 would be an appropriate place for them to start. That's up to them. It's up to them. But I do personally consider it unacceptable to have wage freezes or downloading of wage increases that will result in educational services being taken from people, from our students.
And just I appreciate you making that clarification, because certainly should this board choose to write a letter as suggested, it is in no way a commentary on whether wage lifts shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Jens?
You touched on my issue about the wage. That's not about that, it's about the process. But also, to clarify, Trustee Coleman, is that when I spoke to one of the directors of BCSTA regarding this, it's imperative that each board writes a letter and also goes through BCSDA, so the Ministry of Education understands that as a board and as a district we are not supporting this letter, and then we go through on that. So they would like us to do both, actually.
Trustee Grimmett?
Yeah. I think I have to be very clear. They're looking for some cost savings now, and we went through quite a process in our budget, and we actually cut a number of things to balance our budget, and we're one of the school districts in the province. At least we had a bit of a surplus that we can rely on. There's many districts in this province that are really on the edge, and this is a serious problem. And we're just projecting right now that we're going to have to do a budget adjustment for 2013-14, and there's going to be some cuts because there's some demands on financing and some other expectations for costs. So this really is not doable. And I mean, the minister here, and I'll just, said, to be clear, generate savings obtained by boards must not negatively impact the delivery of educational programs for students. Is he kidding? It has a direct impact. So, for me, I would like to see in the letter that we write to the minister that, one, it's CC'd to BCSTA, and we also make a reference that we do support our organization and the survey that they are doing, because I know that the survey is going to come back quite negative because of the letters that I've read so far.
Okay, I just have couple last comments. One, to reiterate what the Secretary Treasurer said. We have 88% of our budget tied up in lockdown costs, so that leaves us a wiggle room of 12-13% for any of these savings that we're supposed to find. I think the letter that we, if we approve the motion and support the motion, the letter would also need to indicate here are what our efforts have been. So it would be a comprehensive letter as opposed to just that we don't like it. I think that shows good due diligence on our part that we've demonstrated in the last number of years in terms of managing our budget. And we will get that out, should it be approved, as soon as possible. So no further questions on the motion to write a letter to the minister stating our objection to this letter. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, I'll carry on. Thank you. Operating budget timelines for 2013 and 14 on page 27. You will see an outline of what the Finance Committee has proposed for budget consultation. And that's our plan right now. As you can see, it's quite comprehensive, and we're going to be busy for the next few months. So, don't throw anything else at us, please.
Any questions, comments?
Any comments about the strategy we're going to use?
I have just an observation. It appears that we've moved up some dates around the consultation piece in contrast to what's happened in previous years. I think that's a good sign.
Yeah. The issue was why would you do public consultation when it's already a done deal? Not a good idea. To be, as other people have said, let's be transparent about it. They should be in the process a little earlier than at the last minute. We received an update on the annual facility grant in regards to GP Vanier, and that is ongoing. And we will expect to hear some things on the resurfacing later on. The Secretary-Treasurer provided you a report on the Statement of Financial Information, SOFI report, and it's attached, and so I will move the recommendation that the Board adopt the Statement of Financial Information as presented.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Donna. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Policy Advisory Committee did not meet since the last board meeting, and I'll move it on to the Education Committee meeting. Trustee Payton?
We do not meet. The next meeting is Tuesday, January 15th at North Island Distance Education School. And it's a public meeting, and you're all invited to come out and join us.
And I see the same for the Transportation Committee, a date to be announced in the new year.
We were awaiting the reappointment of delegates, so maybe Russell, we can pick a date before.
So somebody move receipt of the board committee report?
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Rick. All those in favor? And that's carried. Board appointees to other bodies. committee structure. The 2012 First Nations Education Steering Committee Provincial Conference. And that would be you, Trustee Selby?
Yeah, I attended it on Friday, November 23, and Saturday, and it was a really good conference. A lot of the keynote speeches and panel can be seen online at the Connect website, and a lot of good workshops. Three of the workshops were by SD 71 education people, and I actually did see one facilitated by Kevin Lees, who runs the Ravens program, and it was really good. And you should read my notes and go online and see the speeches.
Thank you for your detailed summary. It was very helpful. It sounds like it was a very worthwhile
It was.
endeavor to attend. Any comments or questions?
I thought the comments about Canadians not understanding the history, not just of residential schools, but of colonization in general, and the impact that it's had on First Nations is pretty true. And I think the report today on Locals report has some implications, and I do think that as a district, we should be looking at ways to make, rather than having Banny offer a First Nations social studies course, that basically that approach becomes mainstream. There's two different programs, but that more of our students are made aware, and that it's a part of the curriculum for everybody. One day attendance at the big house in Grade 4 is really not enough exposure, in my view.
Yes, well, one of the goals of the local AEC is to allow all students to learn more. So within the schools, they're not just teaching the Aboriginal children. Everyone is learning something.
So hopefully we'll see that supported more strongly.
Thank you, Trustee Katie.
So on the one on trauma and brain, I found that quite interesting. Is there any more material on that one? That was to talk about the effect of brain injuries on children, and that. Was there any more research on that, or some reading material that came along with that? Yeah, actually I did put together a little package. It's been in the trustee office, and there is a little handout, but he was very, he wants to get out of information, and his email address is here, and he encourages people to email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Selby. Move on to new business. Civic Governance Forum, the annual Civic Governance Forum in Harrison Hot Springs, BC, March 22nd, 23rd. The recommendation, or the motion is that any trustee wishing to attend the Civic Governance Forum may do so from optional board business.
Smooth recommendation.
Seconder, thank you, Rick. Any discussion? Trustees have attended this in the past, over the years?
Fabulous experience, lots of positives. Would have to encourage other trustees to attend as well.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Seeing none, although carried unanimously. Canadian School Board Association Conference in Vancouver, July 4th through 6th. And again, you see the motion before you.
Move the motion.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Janice. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Third item, the Ministry of Education announcement to review international student program. Trustee Caton.
This is basically a letter to the Ministry of Education to, once again, look at the co-governance model that boards and the Ministry of Education are supposed to have, and just to have a consultation process prior to any changes to the international student program that they consult with boards and superintendents prior to that. So it's supposedly letting them know that we are in a co-governance model and we wish to be consulted before they change programs that affect boards and students.
So Perhaps it would be useful for us just to provide a bit of a context for this item, as it's not something that we've really talked about. Are you okay?
I am
Or do
okay
you want
to
me
do
to
that.
do that?
I can start it.
Okay.
If I faint, you can
If
do
you
it.
faint, not from the
My
item.
apologies. Just for some context for the gallery and just a bit of a further conversation for trustees, in the November meeting of IPSI, which is the steering committee for all the districts that have international education programs, very much like we do. Variety, there's over, I think, about 24 districts across the province that bring international students into their districts in an attempt, as we do, to expose our students to different cultures and different languages, and also for those to bring international students into our valley so that they have some different kinds of experiences. As you know, that those students are charged a tuition fee to attend our schools. And in the November meeting, quite suddenly, to be fair, the government made a funding proposal to IPSI that would have government receiving money from districts, basically a surcharge for every student that we bring in, and money would go directly to the Ministry of Education. There wasn't a lot of meat around the actual proposals, and so in the conversation at IPSI at the November table, questions were asked about the purpose of the money, what would that look like, and there were 3 options presented at the November meeting on the part of government that ranged from everywhere, like a per student rate that goes back directly to the ministry, a percentage of the dollars that districts bring in, a flat percentage rate, 3%, for example, would go back to the ministry based on the kind of revenue that comes in to pay for those students. It was, and really, truly, the questions were, what would government do with that money? And they provided a bit of a framework, which was a variety of, they thought that there was be a variety of services that the Ministry of Education would provide these students, very many of which districts already provide. So it was quite a difficult conversation at the IPSI table. And there was a letter written by IPSI on behalf of all of us, of all of our districts, asking government some questions about what the purpose of the funding would be, how would that work, and whether or not they were going to move ahead on that. So most of the boards that are affected, or the districts that are affected, are talking about it at meetings like this, and we're waiting for some clarification from the ministry, and I suspect that IPSI themselves will respond with some serious concerns over government taking a percentage of the fees that students bring to districts, or a per person, per student ratio, and I suspect that by the end of January, some boards will be writing letters as well. So that's the context about it, is that the government has put forward, I'd like to call it a proposal, but it's not a proposal, has put forward the idea that they will be looking at taking some dollars from each individual district regarding the kind of attached to the tuition that comes in for international students. So the question will be is that will they move forward on that, and what will they declare as the purpose of that money?
And for further clarification, there's 25, 26
Roughly
districts?
24 districts across the province who do a variety, 24 programs. Some districts are very large. In the Lower Mainland, there's a number of districts that do a variety of things. They bring students into their districts like we do. They send teachers and students on exchanges like we do. And a couple of them have large offshore international schools. And so there's lots of dollar value to the ministry if they were to actually place a surcharge on international ed. There would be some accumulation of a fair amount of money back to the ministry for the purposes that they are just now describing. And we're hoping that there's more information about what it is they would actually do with the money that doesn't duplicate what's already being done in districts. They've talked a little bit about leveling the field, setting limits on the numbers in some districts that students could bring. And of course, IPSI's position is that there is no one better than a district and a board to determine how many students that they would like to bring into their district, for the reasons that are all about enriching the lives of our students. And so there was talk about setting limits about the number of students that could come, and perhaps then also setting a flat rate for international students, which would then be a disadvantage for some of the smaller districts, particularly in the rural north, where if it's a flat rate for students to come in and they can either pay the same amount of money to go to Vancouver or the same amount of money to go up into the interior of Fort Nelson, it's going to be very difficult for those smaller districts to market students to come to their districts. Right? And once again, we'll get to a place where we used to be before international students, where we had very little to offer our own students around a resource around learning about different cultures. This is why we do it. We don't do it because of the revenue. The revenue is a byproduct. We do it because it makes us better. It gives us opportunities to bring international students who live a very different life and bring them into our schools and connect with our kids and become their friends and have wonderful homestays. And we're all better for that experience. The byproduct is the revenue, and the question from the IPSI is why now, and what will happen with the revenue that the government might collect. So that's the context of that.
Thank you. Do you have any further comments to make? So, have you made your motion?
I made the motion, it was seconded.
As a second? Good. So discussion, Sheila.
Just wanted to put the word meaningful consultation in there so that it's not that their co-governance model, as often their idea of consultation is never quite ours. To me, it sounds a little bit like BC Ferries, where before we know it, we're going to have a crown corporation with somebody, CEO with $1 million salary and this giant marketing budget and no service whatsoever. And I have a lot of concerns where I know our district has worked so hard to make sure the homestay experience is good and safe, and there's really robust support and cultural experiences. And if the ministry is thinking that it can do a better job of providing those supports so that the funding would go to them, I could just imagine on a Friday night when there might be a problem and the phone call will not go to Victoria for support. It will be us and it'll be our reputation, and we've worked so hard to have great programs there. I just think it's very misguided, thinking that they could do a better job than the districts are doing.
Any other comments or observations? Okay, so the motion is before us. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. More to come on this, I'm sure. Item 4, active transportation, HASTE. We thank Trustee McDonald for the briefing note attached and for board discussion, and perhaps you'd like to lead it off.
Well, we had our visit, our presentation on the 22nd, so I did a oral report at the next board, but I wanted to get something in writing and some more material, and also knowing that we talked about potential draft budget. Now, this would go to the Transportation Committee meeting in January for some more discussion and ideas whether it can what realistically can we achieve working with our partners. But the Regional District Cycling Task Force has met already and proposed in principle to support this approach as a major part of their work plan next year, and their budgeting cycle required that they give some information and an estimate of a budget ask by the end of this month, so it's needed to be prepared for them. So it is coming to you. We're not looking for support or decisions or whatever, just some background, and then we can go through the transportation process. I find I'm a little torn myself because I believe really strongly in the benefits of this program, but even in all of our financial circumstances, to think that we are looking for a share of $30,000 to go towards this, and I think the outcome of the meeting was very much a sense that we need to do it. It'll be a good thing to do it. It has multiple benefits, but all of us, the municipal partners and the district, are going to be stretched to take this money, which seems like a thrill in a way. But my hope is that by doing this, certainly we have health outcomes, and it's great for student health, but I believe that it will result in less spending on parking lots and asphalt, which in my mind is also a really good thing. So I do believe really strongly in it, and I hope they all take the time to read it and get that same sense of commitment, but I know it's going to be a bit of a mutual leap of faith by all our partners. Though speaking about the health issue too, I really do believe that this and some initiatives that are coming from the Ministry of Health around comprehensive student or school health need to be funded by the Ministry of Health. So one of the things that this briefing paper is a bit about is talking about strategy to go to the Ministry of Health and say, we can deliver programs for healthier students, but not within the education budget. So how are you planning to support us in this? And this might be a bit of a test or a pilot. I think we're one of the first districts on the island that would be implementing a program like this. It's within VIHA and the ministry's direction that they want us to go, figuring out how we work together on student and community health. It's an important piece, but they haven't really been indicating how they plan to fund it. I'm wondering if they might do something like BC Hydro did when they wanted us to save energy. They gave us money for a position. So it's a place where we definitely need to be following up. Other than that, kind of speaks for itself. It's something, we've got to do it. It'll be great. It'll build some real excitement at the schools. We've got at least 7 schools that want to be in the first year pilot. We may need to pull that back a bit, but it's a good initiative. It's just hard to say we have to do this when we're talking about potentially, EA positions or hot lunch programs or whatever else, So be mindful of where we're at financially. I do hope that the board will be supportive of it as we work through that. Yeah.
Thank you. Any comments? Trustee Grinham?
Yeah, just a reminder of the board that walking school buses are not a new phenomenon. In fact, it was introduced into this school district about 7 or 8 years ago. It lasted. It was sponsored by the DPAC through the school parent advisory committees. It was successful until the first snow day. And of course, there are a number of our schools in our school district. Those are inner schools, and yeah, there's a traffic problem there. But I'm glad you said and recognize that funding is an issue, because the educational dollars and they're dwindling, and I would hope that they would look at other alternatives if they're going to create this initiative that they need. And you talked about other partners, and I would assume those other partners would be municipalities and regional districts, etc. So, and if you can find the funds from alternate sources, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'd just like to thank you for your detailed note and certainly recognize the passion that you have for this particular area, and look forward to participating in discussions not only at the Transportation Committee table, but also here. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Ron. Can I just add for Trustee Greenham that there is a Facebook page for Active Travel to School in Comox Valley, and if you look on there, there'll be postings that will show when you have a really successful program, which tends to need more support than just the parents on their own. The programs in Edmonton and out east those kids are doing it in a foot of snow. So and having a good time doing it. So check out that Facebook thing.
Okay, I'm just telling you the history. Okay.
I'm aware about it. So I absolutely know.
I believe, if memory serves, Rick was the school bus driver on that
We'll get them out again. But it is pretty neat, and there's lots of information that'll show that it does work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last item is correspondence, and the Secretary Treasurer is going to explain why we need not fear letters from the Auditor General of British Columbia.
That's right. So you have in your package on page 37 and 38 a copy of a letter from the Assistant Auditor General of British Columbia addressed to the Chair. The letter refers to the financial statement audit coverage plan, and what that is in the province is the Auditor General routinely selects organizations within the government reporting entity, the GRE, and they directly conduct audits of those entities. And they do it as a way to stay informed of the activities of all of the departments of government. And so they operate with about 4 or 5 school districts at any one time that they are directly auditing. This is a long ways out, so the timeline for us is the current year, the 12-13, the following year, the 13-14, and the one after it, the 14-15, KPMG will continue to be our auditors for those 3 years. On the 14-15 year, the Auditor General will have what's called oversight level, which means they will be actively watching the audit, but KPMG will still conduct the audit. And then effective for the 15-16 school year, so our June 30th, 2016 financial statements, the Auditor General will become our district auditor, and that will be for at least a period of 5 years. There's no irregularities or inaccurate reporting or anything that has caused this change. It's just purely the Auditor General publishes a schedule, and it's like a 37-page long schedule, and you can find yourself on it. And I think Ron actually had notice of this long before I came that it was coming down the pipe as well. So this is just the official notice, and you'll notice on the CCs that our auditor has been copied on this letter, which is their official notification that the 14-15 audit, the June 30th, 2015, will be their last audit under our current relationship. And then the Auditor General will be the people that do our audit, and we understand that the cost is sort of a fair market value cost is what they invoice us. I don't know what that means, or whether that means more or not. I guess we'll find out if our current costs are at fair market value or not. So, and that's really the extent of this letter. So over the time, I'll certainly get in touch with Bill, and we'll start having some discussions and figure it out over the next 3 years.
Thank you. And that concludes our agenda for the evening. And before adjourning, just open it up for question and inquiries from our studio audience. Seeing none, just before calling for a motion to adjourn, on behalf of the board, want to wish everybody the best for this holiday season. A Merry Christmas, a belated Happy Hanukkah. Wish that as you progress into the new year, that 2013 brings happiness, health, and lots of joy to you all. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Thanks, Donna. All those in favor? And we'll see you on the other side.